Hello everyone, welcome to the third and final video on our process manufacturing series. Today we will be focusing on manufacturing orders, and we will again use Foodco as our sample company as we have done in our past two videos. On this video on manufacturing orders, we will find out that manufacturing orders can be used to manufacture inventory items. These are items that we have set up bill of materials for. They can be finished goods or intermediaries. They're marked as assemblies in MISys. Or we can manufacture non-inventory items that are items that don't have a master file. And MISys can then give us the option whether we want to convert these into inventory items or not. Before you start going with manufacturing orders, just like in all the other videos, we have options to consider. These are whether the manufacturing orders are going to be linked to one another with child MOs. What does that mean? If you want to have an intermediary good being produced and its manufacturing order become a child manufacturing order for the parent, which might be the finished good itself. And then another option to consider is whether you're going to use the start function or not. And finally, whether the shop floor control module is going to be active and used or not. So without further ado, let's get into our MISys system and let's figure out how we can use these. In MISys, we need to navigate to our production menu, select manufacturing orders, and click on new. The new manufacturing order creation window pops up, and there will be a few fields here that are mandatory for us to enter. The first of these is the manufacturing order number. Here we need to give a unique identifier to the manufacturing order we want to create, and this can be an alphanumeric and 15 characters long. So for this session we will use FCMO, Food Company Manufacturing Order, and 1008 for a manufacturing order number. And then there is a optional description field. We can enter a simple description here, test MO. And then the next mandatory field is where the system is asking us what we want to build using this manufacturing order. As we have just discussed in the previous slide, we can either build inventory items. These are items that have attached bills of materials to them currently in the master files, or non-inventory items. If we were to enter an item that does not have a bill of material attached to it or a master file attached to it, when we press tab, it is going to ask us, the built item is not an existing item, do you want to build a non-stocked item? If we click yes, it'll tell us this is a non-stocked item and it'll give us the option to convert to inventory, which means it'll go through the process of setting a master file for this item. If we just leave it as is and enter a location number for it, which is the next mandatory field, it wants to know where the inventory for the built item should be created, and then enter, of course, the quantity of our order. Let's say we want to build 10 of these items, set a completion date, let's say next week, and because there is no lead time, if we set the start date based on the completion date, it will put it to the same date. You will notice that the material tab is blank, empty. The reason for that is obviously because there is no bill of material, MISys does not know how to build this non-stocked item. In this case, if you choose to build this non-inventory item, you need to create your bill of material, in a sense, in the material tab by including the components, the materials that need to be part of this finished good or intermediate or whatever it is that you are building, and the required quantities for each of those items. So for the purposes of this exercise, we will use building an inventory item. And let's build our inventory 1001, which is mixture 01. As soon as we put that in there, the description populates because the item actually has a master file. We select the location where the inventory will be built into, and we decide how much we want to order with the unit of measure that the master file has identified, in this case, pounds. So let's say 240 pounds. I think that's going to equate to one lot. As you can see in ordered lots, it says one lot. And as soon as I enter that, a window pops up here asking me whether I want to populate this order from the bill of material for item intermediary 1001. When I hit yes, it asks me if there is a revision number. It will ask me for a revision number. In this case, I want to pick revision number 1. And when I do that, the material tab gets populated with the bill of material for item 1001, revision 1. I can go ahead and also hit, select a completion date for this item. Let's say I want it done by next week. And then if I hit set for the start date, it'll look at the lead time that the item has and set an appropriate start date. In this case, our lead time is 0 days, same day manufacturing, so it'll set it to the same day. Now, with process manufacturing, one of the main things is the yield. And a lot of the software that have identified themselves as specialized process manufacturing software, they ask you enter certain yields. But as you know, in your manufacturing environment, there is never a constant yield. It always changes. There might be an average that you're more likely to get, but in either case, there is always pluses and minuses going from that average. And when you enter your actual numbers, the software actually writes variances, whether it's negative or positive variances. So it's no different with MISys. The materials that are populated here are the required quantities based on your BOM. You can change these required quantities, and if you do, then those will be what is consumed for this. Or you can keep these the same, but complete the item for a different amount. Instead of 240 pounds, maybe you got 230 or 250. So when you're completing it, you can complete for that, and having used these same quantities or differentiating quantities, the ERP system will still write off to the appropriate variance accounts. Now, some of the things to notice here is you can add or delete materials as you want. For example, if I wanted to add an additional item to this list, all I have to do is go add a line, select my item from the list, and determine the quantity and add that. If I want to delete an item, if I don't want to have an item here, then I could delete that by just going and deleting that line item. Changing quantity of the required materials. Instead of 70, I decide to put 90. So all of this can easily be changed using MISys, and it's a very good option to have, especially in process manufacturing environments. Now, we have talked about consumed versus standard. The difference here is if an item is consumed, once the work order is released, if you change the quantity of the ordered item or the completed item, it'll still consume that whole amount. Whereas any changes made to the manufacturing order with the order quantity will reflect the standard items required quantity. So right now it is not released. If I make a change here, the 240, let's look at current state. Flour is 70, whatever the unit of measure is. I'm assuming it's pounds. So if I change this to 120 and hit tab, you will see that that is gone to half as well, 35. So let's put this back to 240. Now, if I were to release this manufacturing order, let's just confirm that it went to 70. As you can see, it went to 70. If I release this manufacturing order, these quantities have now been fixed in place because they're consumed. If I change this to 120, I'm making half a lot. But as you can see, the consumed does not change. Whereas the standard item, in this case labor, has gone halfway. Let's go change it back to 240, and we'll see our labor go back to where it was originally, which is 1.75 hours. So this is good to know, because in process manufacturing, you bring a batch of something and you dump it into your vat or into your mixer or whatever, regardless of how much output you get at the end, that quantity is consumed, right? Whereas with the standard quantities, you might want to add a little bit more or add a little bit less, especially if it is your packaging items. Well, if you are getting an output of 1,000 boxes, well, you're going to use 1,000 boxes. But if you get 999, then you're going to use 999 boxes. So the difference between standard and consumed is a very good functionality that MISys gives you that helps in process manufacturing. Now we have that our manufacturing order, we have it saved. We have to process our manufacturing order. And there are multiple options here. And the easiest option is just directly to go to complete manufacturing order. This option is useful when you want to keep it to the simplest possible way. And your lead times probably are very short, 1 day, 2 days, around there. And you can just go ahead and complete your manufacturing order at the end of those 1 or 2 days when the item has actually been manufactured, and it doesn't have a very big implication on your supply chain, as opposed to when you have lead times that are a week or longer. Then you want to be able to move your raw materials into your work in process inventory, WIP, so that your supply chain can have that visibility and order accordingly and not be 1 week behind in their following the inventory levels. So let's go ahead and complete this manufacturing order just the simplest way possible. When we click on that complete manufacturing order button, the window pops up asking us quantity. You have ordered 240 pounds, but you might not necessarily get 240 pounds. Maybe I get 245 pounds. I can assemble this. I can assemble less, more, or exact. Well, in this case, let's assemble more. It'll give us a warning. You're completing more than the order quantity. Do you want to continue? Say yes. Order completed successfully. We are a serial lot track company, so we always want to assign the serial numbers when it's time to do so. So when the assign lot numbers window pops up, the first thing we need to assign is the item number intermediate 1001. That's our finished good. So there are already some lot numbers available here. I will just go ahead and select this one. Autofill that, and 245 completed quantity gets assigned to that lot number. Once I save this, now it's time to assign the lot number for the ingredients, the raw materials that were used in the production of this. Each time I select a row and hit assign, it is asking which lot number of the finished good do you want to assign this. It seems redundant here, but this becomes very important when there is multiple lot numbers for the finished good itself. Then you can make the distinction for your raw materials, which of the finished good lot numbers that specific raw material lot number was assigned to. This is a very important part in traceability, and in my experience I have seen high-end software, ERP software, not offer this level of detail in traceability. So click assign, and the raw material lot number shows up. There is one in this case, so we can say assign or autofill, doesn't matter, and save and close, because required is 70, assigned is 70. So we're done for this. So it goes in order with all of those. If you know for a fact that all your raw material lot numbers are in FIFO order, then you could just hit assign all even without coming to the screen. So you can do autofill here. Of course, you have to select the line first, autofill and save. But in next one, for RM1003, when I hit assign, I'm just going to hit assign all. It won't even go to the next screen. It just goes and assigns in FIFO order. Here. No, I don't want to print a pick list. And we are done here. So what did we do? We had ordered 240 pounds. We've completed 245 pounds. However, our material usage, because these were consumed items, they did not change. The original required quantity, whatever it was, we have completed with the same quantities except labor, which was a standard item, so it got adjusted proportionally based on the change between the order quantity and the completed quantity. So here we see very clearly the difference between consumed items and standard items. Now we can go ahead and close this manufacturing order. However, know that once you close a manufacturing order, you can no longer make changes to it. So until you are sure that you don't want to make any changes, it is a good idea to leave it open. But for housekeeping purposes, it's always good as you know that you are completed with that manufacturing order and there is nothing else to change, to close those manufacturing orders. Now, we have done this, and this was the simplest way of completing or processing a manufacturing order. Another option is, let's just create another work order here. It's going to be 1009, and we can just directly copy from 1008 here. When you do this, everything populates from the manufacturing order that you have copied from, including the material tab. Now, if we wanted to move some of the items into WIP, work in process inventory, rather than going directly to complete, what we would do is we would start the manufacturing order. So once the manufacturing order is released, we would, instead of going to the complete manufacturing order button, you could go start manufacturing order. And the quantity you enter here is for your built item. So if we are doing 240 pounds, now it is asking where do you want to move the materials, the raw materials. You can move them from stock to WIP, and what it'll do is the corresponding raw material for 240 pounds of this finished good will move from stock to WIP. And you have other options here as well. You can move them stock to reserve. If they were in reserve, you can move them reserve to WIP. And on the right hand side of this two-column transfer list, you see the complete opposite of whatever's on the left hand side. Stock to WIP on the right hand side, WIP to stock. So to reverse whatever you might have done before. Let's just say we want to move it stock to WIP, transfer. Of course, it is going to ask us for serial numbers. And just like in the previous screen, we can go ahead and assign, same as the previous completion step. You can do assign all in here, or just select the row and autofill it onto the one that you want. Now, if you had multiple lot numbers that were used for any given ingredient, you could just go enter the quantity here. In this case, you look at in this window here, the required is 50, remaining 50 because we haven't assigned anything. I could go assign 20 here, and if there was another lot number available, I would select that lot number and put the remaining 40 there, 30 there, and the whole quantity would be assigned. So once I say 50 and tab out, you see that required is 50, now assigned is 50, remaining 0. I save that, and the last one, assign, and I can hit assign all, save. I don't want to print a pick list, and we can close. This way the manufacturing order has been started. The 240 pounds, the raw materials required for this, have been allocated. So let's look at this. What it looks like is the required quantities are here, and everything now is in WIP. That means the material has been pulled to the workstation, and now it is reserved for this. The next step would be to complete the manufacturing order, and in that step you would just go ahead and do exactly what we have done in the previous step of completing a manufacturing order. Let's say in this case we actually did get 240. Let's assemble this. Yes, assign serial lot numbers. What you will notice is that first, of course, it's giving us the pop-up window for assigning a lot number to the finished good. Let's say it is the next lot. What you will see here in the assignment window is pops up with a lot already being, sorry, this is the finished good lot number. We assign this. Of course, we need to select that first, assign that. Notice that WIP quantity is here, so it is asking you, would you like to use this lot? Of course, it's harder for us to see because there's only one lot here, but even if there were multiple lots, what it would default to is where you have moved your stock to as WIP. If you have selected this lot number to move from stock to WIP, then it's going to say you should use from here. Autofill and save and close. So as you can see, this follows the same logic as completing the manufacturing order. The only difference here is that we initially moved the items to WIP, thus enabling our supply chain team to have better visibility into the system rather than waiting for a week or two to complete the manufacturing order. Even though those items were consumed, we've moved them to WIP, removed them from stock, signaling the MRP or buyer's advice report, whatever method we might be using for our purchasing planning, to say, hey, these items have been now used, we need more, if we do. And we can close, and here you will see now the WIP has dropped to 0 and the completed items have been populated with the quantities that were required. And again, we could either close this manufacturing order or wait until to see if there are any more changes that need to be made. Now the next option would be, let's create another manufacturing order and copy from either 1008 or 1009, since they're a copy of each other, doesn't really make a difference. Is if there is routing steps. Now with this, there are no routing steps, and I know that because labor has been entered here as a line item. If you remember from our video on bill of materials, we talked about labor being included in two different ways in manufacturing orders. If we have routing steps, then the workstations that are included as part of those routing steps will have labor associated with them, and your labor will be calculated accordingly. However, if you are not using the routing steps shop floor control module, then you don't need to forego of calculating labor, but rather you can enter your labor into your bill of material as a line item, and as a standard rate it would get calculated. The difference in shop floor control is that it gives you flexibility to use the standard times assigned, in this case 1.75, or actually have your timers going and assign actual times, and it would then record variance into appropriate accounts. So in this case, actually, let's close this and now let's not save it. No, we don't want to add this. What we want to do is a new manufacturing order. Let's call this test MO SFC. And we need to build an item that actually has routing steps. And I know that building it, our same intermediate 101, mixture 01, as a batch was with routing steps. So I will select that. That's the mixture 1 batch, if you remember from our bill of material video. Now here the quantity unit of measure is batches. So I want to build one batch. Yes, let's populate from the BOM. There's only one revision. It makes it a lot easier to select. Let's set our start date. Lead time is 0, so start date is set as the same as the completion date. Now when I look at the material tab, I have materials, but at the same time I also have routing steps, operations that are associated with each of these materials, and there is no labor. That is because each of our operations actually have labor attached to them. Here, as you can see, picker 1 for picking step has labor A attached to it. Mixer 1 has labor A attached to it, and you could have had many different types of labor. We just did it the simplest way with a single labor code. You can have as many labor codes as you want and specific to workstations if you need. So here, once we have our manufacturing order and we release it, we use these two footsteps to process shop operations. What it's going to provide us is granularity in the way we record our data. So you can have the start and the complete, which we have just covered, but in addition to these, and just like in the start function that we've shown earlier, you have a quantity to start and then complete. You can complete, but you can enter actual time rather than the standard times that were entered in the bill of material previously shown. You actually can have your own process run times here. You can add additional time. Maybe something is not in your bill of material and more time had to be spent on this doing some work, or direct labor. Maybe there was a breakdown and you want to record it to this MO rather than a repair job. Depends what the labor is, but you can select the item itself, its quantity, and its runtime here. You can scrap components, you can scrap assembly. We're not going to go into great detail here because in MISys videos that are available to you from SureStart Advanced 6.4 Plus, the link below, that is you can see currently, has a very good explanation on how to use shop floor control to create and to process manufacturing orders. And in this video, you can go to minute 26 to see how to complete manufacturing orders using shop floor control. But as you can see, it gives you the capability to add great amount of detail into your manufacturing order completion, thus capturing all of your costs. With the completion of our third video on manufacturing orders, we have now officially completed our series on process manufacturing. During this series, we have covered how to do our item setups, bill of material setups, and finally our manufacturing orders. As you were able to follow along, hopefully, MISys is very capable of working on process manufacturing environments as well as on discrete manufacturing environments. And it is very important to decide on the options before starting our setup of our items, of our bill of materials, of our organization in general. So these are to keep in mind. And also, when you start this process, please know that central nervous systems is always here to offer any help in any way that we can, because all our consultants are with many years of experience in operations management area with discrete and process manufacturing. So anytime you get stuck, we are here to help you and to walk the floor with you. I hope you enjoyed this series. See you in the next one.